There's a moment when disrespect hits, and something inside you shifts. It no longer shatters you. You feel it. Yes. But it doesn't break you, as it once did. This isn't numbness or denial. It's the awakening of a woman who's learned to anchor herself in her own worth, even when the world overlooks it. Today, we're diving beyond surface-level advice on boundaries or self-defense. We're exploring the profound psychological terrain Carl Jung mapped out, where true transformation happens, not in reaction but in conscious awareness. By Journey's End, you'll see why spiritually mature women respond to disrespect in ways that seem paradoxical yet fiercely empowering. This insight will reshape how you navigate relationships, guard your energy, and uphold your dignity without losing your essence. Jung taught that our deepest wounds often become our greatest teachers. Nowhere is this clearer than in how we learn to dance with disrespect. Picture this. Someone speaks to you in a way that once sent you spiraling into defense, explanation, or collapse. But now, something new unfolds. You feel the sting. Acknowledge it, and let it pass through you like a storm cloud across an open sky. This is the first gift of spiritual growth, what Jung called the expansion of consciousness. It's the ability to witness your experience without being consumed by it. When disrespect knocks, the spiritually mature woman doesn't pretend it doesn't hurt. She doesn't put on a brave face or rush to forgive. Instead, she practices what Jung would recognize as conscious endurance. She allows the emotion to exist without letting it define her intrinsic worth. The pain is real, but she knows it's fleeting. More importantly, she knows it's not her identity. This distinction is vital. Feeling disrespected and being someone unworthy of respect are worlds apart. A woman who grasps this has taken her first step toward true empowerment. She tells herself, "I feel this. I honor it. But this feeling isn't me." Think of it this way. When you touch something hot, your hand pulls back instinctively. You don't pause to analyze why the stove burns or what it says about your worth. You simply act to protect yourself. The same principle applies to emotional disrespect. Yet most of us were conditioned to override these natural defenses. The spiritually mature woman has reclaimed this primal wisdom. She senses the heat of disrespect and responds without making it a referendum on her value. This is what Jung meant by the integration of the personality, embracing all parts of her experience without letting any steal her sense of self. As you practice this conscious awareness, something remarkable happens. You start noticing patterns not just in how others treat you, but in what triggers the deepest reactions within you. This brings us to the second profound shift. Spiritually mature women they turn inward to understand what old wounds are being touched. Jung spoke of projection and the shadow, those hidden parts of ourselves we haven't yet healed. Others often mirror these unacknowledged wounds. When someone disrespects you, their behavior is wrong. But the spiritually mature woman asks, "Why does this cut so deep?" This isn't self-blame, it's claiming power over her own healing. This isn't about taking responsibility for someone else's poor behavior. It's about owning your own healing and growth, recognizing that your strongest emotional reactions often point to the deepest opportunities for liberation. Perhaps this disrespect stirs an old wound of being unseen or unheard. Maybe it triggers a complex tied to your worth or competence. Perhaps it touches a tender spot where you still doubt your own value. A woman who's learned to work with these triggers doesn't waste energy trying to change others. She uses these triggers as a map to her next healing. Jung believed what remains unconscious controls us from the shadows. Each moment of disrespect offers a choice: react from old wounds, staying trapped in familiar patterns, or see it as a doorway to deeper self-ownership. Imagine a woman who's worked with her triggers for years. Someone makes a dismissive comment about her ideas in a meeting. Instead of defending herself or retreating in pain, She breathes and feels what's stirring inside her. She notices the familiar tightness in her chest, the old story of not good enough trying to surface. But because she's done this work, she doesn't buy into it. She sees it as an old script trying to run. This level of awareness, rooted in Jung's idea of confronting the unconscious, changes how she faces disrespect. When you're not caught in the drama of your triggered story, you see the situation clearly. You can respond from your core, not your wounds. This leads to one of the toughest lessons of spiritual growth, knowing when not to explain yourself. Most of us were conditioned to believe that if someone doesn't see our worth, we must educate them. We explain, justify, and try to prove our value. But the spiritually mature woman has learned something revolutionary. Not everyone is equipped to see your light, and it's not your job to convince them. Jung's concept of psychological types shows that people process the world differently. Some simply lack the capacity to appreciate your unique qualities. Trying to force understanding where it can't exist is like explaining color to someone born blind. It's not their fault. But it's not your burden to exhaust yourself making them see. A spiritually mature woman conserves her energy. She stops casting pearls before swine. To borrow a biblical metaphor, she realizes her explanations often fall on deaf ears. And worse, they can diminish her power by putting her in a position of pleading for recognition. Instead, she masters the art of letting her presence speak. She stops convincing and starts embodying her worth. This shift, grounded in Jung's idea of individuation, means living your truth without needing external validation. She doesn't become cold. She becomes discerning about where she invests her emotional energy. Consider the difference between a woman who spends an hour explaining why someone's comment was wrong and one who simply looks at them, notes their behavior, and mentally adjusts her view of their character. The first woman gives away her power. The second holds it firmly. Jung saw true strength in restraint, a principle rooted in the individuation process. The most powerful response to disrespect isn't always the loudest. Sometimes, it's the quiet recognition that someone has revealed their limits, allowing you to adjust your expectations and interactions accordingly. This level of discernment requires what Jung called the development of the superior function, the ability to hold opposing forces, pain and dignity, care and boundaries in tension, without being torn apart. You can see disrespect as unacceptable, while understanding the other person may not be capable of better in that moment. You can feel hurt, yet preserve your worth. You can care for someone, while shielding yourself from their unconscious behavior. This balance, which Jung tied to the integration of the anima and animus, lets you move beyond simple reactions, choosing responses that honor both your pain and your wisdom. Perhaps the deepest shift spiritually mature women make is how they use their body and energy to communicate boundaries. Words matter, but energy speaks louder. Jung knew we convey more through our presence than our speech. A woman who embodies her boundaries doesn't need to declare them constantly. Her energy field radiates her worth. A silent force, rooted in Jung's idea of the archetype of the self. Think of someone who naturally commands respect, not through fear, but through an undeniable presence of inner strength. This presence grows from inner work healing the places where you doubt your worth, living fully in your body, speaking your truth, and moving through the world with quiet confidence. When you truly know your value, others feel it without a word. A spiritually mature woman may not speak when disrespected, but her energy shifts, her attention withdraws, her openness adjusts. She might leave the conversation or the room, not dramatically, but naturally, as Jung's concept of the unconscious would guide her to protect her psychic space. Jung emphasized the body's role in psychological growth. The integration of mind and body is key to wholeness. A woman who trusts her body's response to disrespect taps into a wisdom beyond intellect. Your body knows when something's off before your mind catches up. She honors this embodied wisdom, refusing to dismiss it with spiritual rationalizations or social politeness. This aligns with Jung's view of the self as an archetype of wholeness, guiding her to step back from those who consistently devalue her, even if they're family or close friends. This might mean limiting time with people who don't value her contributions or choosing environments where her gifts are recognized. These aren't acts of punishment, but of protection, preserving her psychological health, as Jung advocated. A woman who doesn't shield herself from ongoing disrespect isn't being loving or spiritual, she's harming herself. There comes a moment in every spiritually evolving woman's journey when she realizes not every relationship is worth saving. Some people will always misunderstand or undervalue her. In these moments, the loving choice is to step back. This isn't about resentment or revenge, but choosing peace over drama, growth over stagnation, and self-respect over the illusion you can change someone unwilling to change. Jung called this individuation becoming yourself, free from others' expectations. Picture a garden where some plants thrive while others struggle. A wise gardener doesn't force incompatible plants to grow together. She creates separate spaces for each to flourish. A spiritually mature woman applies this to her relationships and environments. When she steps away from chronic disrespect, she's not fleeing, she's moving toward alignment with her true self. This conscious withdrawal, rooted in Jung's idea of confronting the shadow, takes courage, as it often means disappointing those used to her tolerance of poor treatment. It means standing in her truth, even when judged. It means trusting her inner wisdom over external pressures to maintain harmful connections. Jung knew authentic growth often requires disappointing others to honor your own path. A woman embracing this principle stops trying to be everything to everyone. She's willing to be misunderstood by some, to be truly seen by those who matter. As she practices this selective withdrawal, her relationships transform, attracting those who naturally respect her. When you stop tolerating poor treatment, you draw in those who honor you. When you stop explaining your worth to those blind to it, you make space for those who see it instantly. This shift reflects Jung's anima divided by animus integration, balancing inner strength with relational harmony. Perhaps the deepest transformation is in her relationship with pain itself. Each instance of disrespect becomes raw material for deeper insight, not just something to endure. Jung believed conscious suffering could be transformed into wisdom. She sees disrespect as data about others' consciousness, her own vulnerabilities, and where her energy is wasted or needed. This perspective, tied to Jung's alchemical transformation, doesn't mean she seeks disrespect, but when it comes, she extracts value, asking, "What is this teaching me?" She asks, "How can I use this to grow? What boundaries need strengthening? What old patterns are ready to be released?" Jung described this as an alchemical process, where raw experiences like disrespect can be transformed into the gold of wisdom through conscious engagement. This transformation demands what Jung called the conjunctio, the union of opposites. She holds both her pain and her power, her vulnerability and her strength, her frustration and her hope. This work isn't easy. It requires an emotional maturity most never cultivate. But its rewards are profound. She develops what Jung termed psychological immunity. She becomes less swayed by others' unconscious behavior. She stops taking personally what was never about her. This shift allows her to maintain her center, no matter the storms around her. Think of a tree weathered by storms. Its roots grow deeper with each challenge, its trunk stronger, its branches bending without breaking. A spiritually mature woman builds this resilience, as Jung's individuation process suggests, turning disrespect into strength rather than weakness. This transformation reshapes her relationship with reactive behavior. Jung knew most human actions are unconscious reactions, not conscious responses. The average person, when disrespected, either lashes out in anger or collapses in pain, both disempowering. The spiritually mature woman creates space between stimulus and response. When disrespected, she pauses, feeling her body's signals, noticing her mind's stories, observing her emotions without letting them take control. This pause, rooted in Jung's concept of conscious awareness, is where her power lies. From this conscious space, she chooses her response. She might address the situation directly, walk away, or limit future engagement. Whatever she chooses, it comes from her center, not her wounds. Aligning with Jung's vision of self-directed growth, this ability to respond rather than react is the greatest gift of spiritual maturity. It means others' unconscious behavior no longer dictates her inner state. She becomes the author of her emotional experience, not a victim of others' projections. As Jung's individuation process aims to achieve, she sees projection for what it is and refuses to internalize others' shadow material. She maintains her emotional boundaries amid others' unconscious displays, not out of coldness, but from clarity and compassion. She can empathize with someone's unconscious behavior while protecting herself from its impact. This balance, reflecting Jung's integration of the anima and animus, makes her more compassionate, not less, as she sees the situation clearly, without being swept into its drama. The final transformation in a spiritually evolved woman is subtle yet profound. She no longer needs to win, to be right, or prove her worth to those who can't see it. This liberation from external validation is true freedom. Jung wrote of the ego's need for recognition and how spiritual growth transcends it. She draws her worth from a deeper source, call it God, the universe, or her higher self unshaken by human opinions. Aligning with Jung's concept of the self as the archetype of wholeness, this doesn't mean she's indifferent to how others treat her. It means their treatment no longer defines her worth. She can acknowledge poor behavior without making it a statement about her value, maintaining her standards effortlessly. From this inner autonomy, her response to disrespect feels almost effortless. She doesn't need to psych herself up to set boundaries or convince herself she deserves better. She simply knows her worth and acts from that knowing, embodying Jung's vision of a fully individuated self. Others sense this quality in her, though they may not name it. There's a quiet authority, an inner power, that commands respect not through force or manipulation, but through authentic presence. This presence, magnetic to those ready for genuine connection, naturally repels those drawn to power games or unconscious patterns. She becomes a living archetype, as Jung might describe, filtering relationships to align with her growth and authenticity. Jung saw this level of development as serving not just the individual but the collective. By holding her center against disrespect, she becomes a stabilizing force, modeling a way of living that inspires others to claim their own power. Her refusal to engage in unconscious patterns of disrespect creates space for more conscious interactions. Her dignified presence invites others to explore their own worth, embodying Jung's belief that individual transformation ripples outward to heal the collective. Each time she chooses response over reaction, boundaries over explanation, presence over proof, she demonstrates a different possibility. She shows it's possible to maintain dignity without defensiveness, protect herself without attacking, and honor her worth without diminishing others. Her quiet strength teaches her daughter that women don't have to accept poor treatment. Her graceful withdrawal from toxic dynamics shows her friend they have choices. Her boundaries inspire her colleague to rethink their own relationship with respect, fulfilling Jung's vision of collective transformation through individual consciousness. As we close this exploration, reflect on your own relationship with disrespect. Notice where you might still give away your power through over-explaining, where you tolerate poor treatment to keep the peace, where you react instead of respond. Spiritual evolution isn't a destination, but a journey. As Jung's individuation process teaches, each moment of disrespect is a chance to practice conscious response, to deepen your self-awareness, and to strengthen your inner authority, guiding you toward true freedom. This path isn't always easy, but it leads to a freedom most never know to be yourself, despite others' opinions. To hold your center in any storm, to love without losing yourself, and to care without sacrificing your dignity. Jung believed humanity's goal is individuation, becoming your true self. For a woman on this path, learning to dance with disrespect is a powerful tool for this becoming. Each conscious response builds your authenticity. Each honored boundary strengthens your connection to yourself. If this resonates, share your thoughts below. How have you transformed your relationship with disrespect? How has cultivating inner authority shifted your relationships? Your insights might be the spark another woman needs on her path to spiritual evolution. Join our community of conscious women supporting each other's growth and awakening.